I don't have any intro music. I wish I did. Breathe between your battles. Does that sound good? That's what I'm gonna do. Thought that was a good little iceberg. I have never done this before, so please be patient with me. Eventually, I will have an intro song, but that's not the point. The point is, my name is Chloe. I like to go by McRae's mom, and welcome to the very first episode of Breathe Between Battles. I'm a mom, I'm a creator, I'm a believer, and I'm someone who's had to learn sometimes the hardest way what it means to keep breathing when life keeps throwing battles your way. This podcast was born out of a place that's both painful and purposeful. I wanted to create a space where people who are walking through grief, advocacy, or the chaos of medical motherhood can come and just breathe. And that's what I'm doing. Because the truth is, we're all fighting something, but there are sacred pauses between those fights, those moments where we stop, where we breathe, and where we remember who we are and why we are even here. This one's just kind of be a bulletless, choppy points of what the point of this podcast is, and then I'm gonna go, more detail through the episodes. So, what is Breathe Between Battles about? How did I even get the name? All of that. Well, it's about just the unthinkable things in life. To me, it's about how my faith just wavered and never fully broke. If anything, it made me stronger. It's about grief and how that changes shape, but is also a black hole at the same time and never disappears. Some episodes are going to be very raw, very vulnerable. I'll probably be crying. I'm not going to lie. Talking about loss, talking about grieving, even having a living child, your life that has changed. Some episodes are going to be about healing. Some episodes are going to be about what it's like to live after your world has shifted forever, whether that be a loss, whether that be having a medically complex child, having to move somewhere, to be close to a place for that said child, any type of shift in your life. And some episodes are going to be practical, understanding just basic medical terms, learning to advocate for your child, or hearing from other parents raising medically complex kids. Some are going to focus on legacy and what you can do after. And it doesn't even have to be you having a child. If you know somebody, hopefully you don't, that has lost a child, this can also speak to you on how to be a better friend for them and how to help them advocate, how to help them build their legacy, how to just remember to text their angel babies happy birthday every year, things like that. I'm going to touch a little bit on the award on the legacy episode about that I'm creating in honor of my son and the way that his story continues to touch lives and shape hope. So I started this podcast because I know how it feels to be completely alone in your pain, searching for a voice that understands a person who has been through this, just somebody to relate to, and feeling like you cannot catch your breath. And it is just something after something after something, and you are just lost. And if I can be that voice, that person that you relate to, if I could help you feel seen, if I could just be a resource for you to ask questions. And if I don't know those questions, let me tell you, I'm gonna look it up for you. I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna learn whatever you need me to learn so I can help you. Because whenever I was thrown into this journey, there was nothing that could help me. I mean, it is so crazy. CDH is just not talked about. It is just not talked about. I want a space where we can talk honestly. Obviously, you're just going to be hearing me and I'm pre-recording this and I'm talking to you wherever you are, but I am going to have people come in and I'm going to be very honest with them. We're going to talk about hospital rooms. We're going to talk about having faith. We're going to talk about heartbreak. We're going to talk about hope without pretending that it's all okay, but also without giving up on the light that still is left. I don't want you to think I'm really just presenting this negative and loss and grief, because it's not about that either. It's about breathing. It's just about breathing and continuing through the battle that you didn't pick, but you're in, that you're not quitting. I started this podcast, like I said, to be a resource because I didn't have that resource. There are good there's a pretty big Tiny Hero is great for CDH, and I have now found these resources, but I didn't have anybody holding my hand or sitting with me, teaching me how to advocate for my child. So I guess I'll give you a little bit of background. I have 4 beautiful, wonderful, incredible children. My oldest, Lakin, she's 4, and then I have a 2-year-old boy, and then I got pregnant with twins. And Lakin, Maddox, healthy, normal. I mean, I had preeclampsia, but that was like the craziest thing that had ever happened to me. And it's so funny even saying that because obviously preeclampsia is crazy, but I had no clue what was about to happen to me. So I got pregnant with my twins, and at my anatomy scan, they actually told me my baby B, because we didn't know if we were having boys or girls. We were team green, had gastroschisis, and it was pretty early. A lot of times people do anatomy scan at 20 weeks. I think I was like 17 or 18 weeks, so there was still a chance that the intestines could go back in. And I don't even know where I had that first scan at. They were like, "Your baby has gastroschisis." And I'm like, "Okay, gastroschisis. All right, I'm gonna learn everything I can possibly learn about gastroschisis." So I'm looking it up, and I'm like, a gastroschisis is when your intestines are formed outside of the abdomen. There's also an omphalocele where there's a sac. Intestines are still out, but they're in a sac. Gastroschisis, they're just like floating out. And I was like, all right. And, I'm looking it up, and it's like 98, 99% survival rate. It's in the 90s. I don't even remember. This is so long ago. I should have written that down before I started this. My bad. But I was like, okay, gastroschisis, mom, that's cool. And I'm just seeing that when the baby's born, they just kind of lay them on their back. They create a sac. There's a hole, and gravity just slowly puts the organs back into place, and then bada bing, bada boom, you're done. I'm sure if you have a gastroschisis baby, it is much more complex than that. But I'm trying to just put it in layman's terms, at least from what I looked up. Obviously, this is not my life, so I don't know too much. I'll learn though if you need me to. So that was that. Then we went back later, and I prayed and prayed and prayed, and we had so many people praying for his intestines to go back in his body. And then, um, in hindsight now, I make a joke that we prayed too hard because his intestines they went back in his body, and they went so fast, and we prayed so hard that they just pushed straight into his body, up into his chest. Like, they just really pushed up in there. And then that's when we got the news that he was baby B at the time, his name is McRae, had CDH, which is congenital diaphragmatic hernia. And I can go way more into detail, and I will. Oh boy, will I ever go into detail about what that is. But that's when we got that diagnosis. And his intestines were in his chest. There was a hole in his diaphragm, and I'm looking up CDH, and a lot of times Google was like, "Did you mean CHD, like heart defect?" And I was like, "No, I meant CDH." And I just could not find anything. And I'm in North Carolina, and the doctors in North Carolina were like, "Well, this is pretty much fatal." And so many times was I pushed to have, and they didn't say abortion, they said reduction. Do you want to, your baby A is healthy, they're fraternal twins, separate sac, everything, separate placentas. They were like, "We really recommend having a reduction. Baby A is fine, baby A is fine, baby A is fine. You have a healthy baby," and just kept. And I said, "No, I'm not having a reduction. I'm not having a reduction." And I thought too. Now, I mean, gosh, I was 30 weeks and they were still offering it to me. Crazy. And I said, I went. I'm getting seen very often at this point because I'm considered high risk, and they're just looking at him all the time. I go home and I look it up, and I find a hospital down in Florida, Johns Hopkins. And I went back and I said, "Can we go to Hopkins?" And they're like, "Well, Hopkins in Baltimore does this procedure, and it's called FIDO, and it's where they go and they put a little balloon in." And I was like, "Okay, we'll ask them." And so I didn't know at this point. They rejected me. They're like, "No, you're not eligible because you have twins, and anything that you do to baby B could possibly affect baby A. And she's not going to have her intestines put in her chest, but it could put you in preterm labor, and we're not going to risk baby A." And so I'm fighting for this kid, and I'm advocating for him, and he's just in my belly. And I'm like, "I'm not accepting this. I'm just not accepting any of this as an answer." And I said, "Can you send my chart to Johns Hopkins in St. Petersburg, Florida? And they said, no. And I said, why? And they're like, well, Hopkins in Baltimore didn't accept you. So, like, why with that one? And I said, well, they have great numbers. They have a great success rate. That's like CDH capital. And I just heard everybody say, like, be a K's kid, go to Dr. K's, Dr. K's, Dr. K's. And I heard that over and over and over again. And I called this sweet, sweet lady named Jackie. Actually, I just fill out a little information thing, and immediately she called me, and you just know she's a mom or a grandma. She is just so loving, and she immediately called me and was like, "Oh, girl, let's go. Send them to me. Send me the scans. Let's get you in. Let's get you seen." And I went down there, and it was the works. We had MRIs and echocardiograms, all that. Wow, I'm getting so into detail. I'm so sorry. But I go and I find the CDH place, and it was just so surreal. Everybody's smiling. I mean, it's a terrible thing, but they're just ready. They're just ready. And I was so upset that I had to find that place on my own. And I think it was Facebook that told me about it. You can't just Google CDH and find resource after resource. And there's heart hospitals everywhere. There's pediatric hospitals everywhere. There's centers that have things for just very specific things. And CDH just wasn't like that. I can't describe it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be like that because I found the number one place I could go. I was talking to other parents that their kids were there, and we were comparing statistics like how much percent liver is in chest. Are you left sided? Are you right sided? There's even more rare case called bilateral. And you could just speak the language and people understood you, but it's like in a bubble. And I don't want that. I've had friends, they were pregnant and their babies had spina bifida. And so I'm connecting these people. That one girl who I live in the same town with as someone who I grew up with. I was like, hey, your babies both have the same thing. Y'all can help each other out. So, gosh, I mean, y'all, I've been advocating and pushing and helping medically complex moms before I ever even had a medically complex child. And I just love it. Okay, that was a really long tangent, but so I'm going to try to will it back here for a second. So, how I'm going to break this podcast down is it's going to be in, I don't know, tiers, chapters. I don't know the podcast lingo yet. I'm sure I'm going to come up or remember this word right after I finish recording this, but whatever. I'm going to have different sections, categories, let's say chapters, themes. I don't know the word. It'll come to me. Obviously, big ones. I'm going to talk about grief. I don't want to start off, dead baby off the bat. And I just want to start off that way. I'm going to start off with McRae and his story and CDH because that's what got me here. And then I'm going to, after doing that, go into medical motherhood, life inside and outside the hospital walls. And then after that, I'm going to do a condition spotlights or syndrome spotlight, disease spotlight, anything. And that's when I'm going to sit down with other parents of children with specific diagnoses or diagnoses, however you say that. And I want to be a resource because I want you to be able to Google your extremely rare genetic disorder, and then my podcast pop up and you can hear somebody who knows that, and they can tell you the words and stuff. Because when I did go down there, yes, they're all speaking the language, but I had to learn the questions to ask. I had to learn how to be a part of his medical team. And I'm in rounds every day and I'm asking, and I mean, I'm like later, like, oh, I don't like his bilirubin levels, or oh, what are we going to do about this? And what's our flows at on ECMO? And I'm learning the lingo, but not just throwing words out. I'm understanding it because you have to understand, like, you might have a different nurse, a different doctor each day, and you have to learn. You're the most consistent piece there as mom or dad. Okay, so that's that. Then I'm going to talk about advocacy, which is basically what I was just talking about: how to advocate for your kid, how to be on the team, how to ask questions. And then I'm going to have a whole chapter on legacy. And that'll be with my loss and grief chapter, where I talk to people who've lost children and what they do. And I'm going to even bring in people who haven't lost a child, but they know somebody who had. And they're going to say what it's like seeing somebody in that and what they did to honor them, because I don't know what that's like because I'm in the club, unfortunately. So I think it's gonna be really fun. Yes, there's gonna be some really heavy episodes, but I know that this is gonna help so many people, and you know what? If you don't even have a medically complex kid, that's fine too. If you haven't lost a child, that's fine too. If you were just listening to support me, I love that. Wow, thank you. That's amazing. That's incredible. If you do know me, you know that I am a talker and I'm a writer. I had a blog the whole time I was in Florida, and if you've never met me, I would love to meet you. So, send me an email. It's breathebetweenbattles@gmail. Pretty easy to remember. I'm also currently working on my website, so please ignore that too. It's going, okay? I'm a mom. I got 4 kids. I got 3 toddlers running around my house. McRae's twin sister just turned 1, so we officially have 3 toddlers, so please give me grace. And if you have an idea when we get into the condition spotlights or syndrome spotlights, please send it over. And if you want to be on the podcast, shoot, like tell me and we can make that happen. But before I wrap up this first episode, I just want to say wherever you are, whatever your battle looks like, you don't have to have it all figured out. Okay? I'm figuring it out and I'm post battle. You don't have to be strong all the time. You just have to keep breathing, okay? So if you just want to come here and cry and breathe, that's fine. This podcast is not about having the answers. It's about finding the courage to ask the questions out loud and finding those answers and figuring it out. You can come in here not knowing and we can work on it together. So thank you for being here, for listening, for taking that first breath with me because this podcast has been a long time coming. And I hope you come back because this space was made for you too. All right, there's supposed to be music playing right now. Boom, 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 boom. I'm Chloe, and this is Breathe Between Battles. Okay, thank you.